I just got myself another job really where I was working even harder, getting less money. And yeah, it's really tough until you really sort of realize you got to reach out and sort of work on yourself in order to sort of create a business around you.
So joining me on the call today, I've got Richard James from RIVICA. Is that how I pronounce it, Richard?
Yeah, RIVICA. I don't know the correct way to speak. It's actually an anagram of my family, myself, my wife, and my son's name.
Aha, so it's not even a real word. That's great. So so Richard's been with us for a little while, and he's got a fascinating business. He's in the private investigation business. So Richard, maybe just give us a bit of a rundown what you do.
Yeah, look, we provide investigative services to private, corporate, and legal sectors.
Yeah.
Well, basically, we go out there and we find that evidence that people need in order to get peace of mind, to answer some questions on a personal life, or to fix a problem in a workplace or for a legal case.
Yes, and so I always imagine, you watch TV and you got the guy sitting in the car eating like a bag of chips and spending hours and hours. Is that what you do?
Look, yeah, a lot of times, yes. I mean, the investigative sort of industries, there's a number of different disciplines.
Yes.
You referred to surveillance, sitting in the car, following people around. And you're right, you do spend a lot of time sat in the car, waiting for something to happen. 95% monotonism, boredom, with 5% exhilaration. Because when something happens, you've just got to be able to switch on and get that evidence and respond and really be dynamic in the way you follow the subjects around.
Yes.
I suppose the other disciplines are sort of interviewing, taking statements and finding people, but the majority of our work is that sort of sitting around eating donuts, drinking coffee in a car.
Hopefully not too many, but yeah, interesting. So tell me what made you go into this PI business?
It's more of a necessity, to be honest. My background, I was a detective sergeant in the police force in the UK for 15 years.
Okay.
When I came to Australia with my wife, I started working for a number of different corruption agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 4 years investigating police corruption in Victoria with the OPI.
Right.
And I did 6 years in Western Australia running a COVID unit for the government over there.
Yes.
And when I came back, my wife wanted to come back to Victoria from Perth. And when I came back, I'm thinking, what am I going to do now? I don't really want to go back into the government sector. And I always had a wish to work for myself. I always wanted to be my own boss. And rightly or wrongly, I decided to set up a company and go out on my own. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
2014.
Okay.
I started off. I started off as a contractor, so providing my services and more specifically my training services, because I'm a qualified training assessor.
Okay.
I train all the certified courses all the way up to Cert 4 in security.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that for a period of time whilst working for other agencies as a subcontractor. I think as we spoke about earlier, it gets to a point where you get fed up of making everybody else look good for a small wage, and I wanted to step out on my own, and that's when I sort of expanded from the training point of thing, and provided services as well.
Yeah, and I suppose what we did touch on before is this whole idea of self-employment, where you sort of become a contractor and you're technically working as a wage employee, but on sort of it's almost casual work. Get paid when there's work, and I think there was a moment where you just said, this is not a business, this is self-employment. I think I've got to turn this into a more bona fide business. Maybe tell us about the transition that you're going through or gone through.
Yeah, look, it's a big decision because probably 70% of my income was coming from my training, providing my training services. And because I was spending so much time training, I wasn't able to build my business. I wasn't able to take advantage of momentum and the clients. So it's a big call to sort of give up the training and contract with the companies and really sort of set up for myself.
Yeah.
And I suppose the mistakes you make is that you still go into it with that mentality of being a technician and not a business person.
Yes.
And you're right. I just got myself another job really where I was working even harder, getting less money, and it's really tough until you really sort of realize you got to reach out and sort of work on yourself in order to sort of create a business around you.
Yeah. I mean, one thing you mentioned before was this idea of marketing and how you've never really had to, because all the work came from referral or word of mouth. And then finally the penny dropped, you said.
It did. It was like that sort of, the clouds opening and the light coming through and thinking, Christ, no wonder I haven't made any money over these years.
Yeah.
And look, I had the wrong attitude towards marketing, because I always thought, if I'm spending for marketing, then it's coming out of my money. It's coming out of the money I could be earning.
Yes.
And look, it's fair to say the first couple of years, I didn't pay myself a wage. I was probably working for less than minimum wage throughout the year trying to build a business.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say, it's only since I've sort of started working on myself and learning about business and what's needed to create leverage.
Yeah.
Is that I sort of realized that, especially with COVID, when all my referrals dried up and everybody stopped working, all my work stopped because I wasn't generating anything myself. And that's when the sort of the old mind shift has to change and realize that you got to invest in yourself. You've got to invest in the marketing to generate your own leads. Otherwise, you're not going to sustain yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's a really hard decision. Is marketing is an expense for a lot of people. It's money going up, and they see it as coming out of their bank account when really it's an investment. And the only difference between expense and investment is the expected return. So if I know for $1 of marketing, I'm going to make $2 in profit, all of a sudden I'm excited about spending the money. But if I can't see that link, then it gets quite difficult. So obviously over the past few months, there's been some significant shifts because we can just see it in the way that your business is building at the moment. What are the key elements? So what do you think is making that big shift?
Oh, look, certainly I think it's understanding the numbers.
Yeah.
I was just happily plodding along, just taking jobs in, working them, allocating work, and not realizing what my outgoings were, what my expenses were, not planning ahead. I think the big shift for me is actually working out the numbers, because I was using Google Ads, I was using marketing, then I'd stop it because all of a sudden I felt like it wasn't working. And I had no evidence to show it wasn't working. And when I sat down with Cindy and looked at the numbers, it blew me away because it bloody was working.
Yeah.
And I just kept, when you have these quiet days and things slow down, you start looking at, oh God, those expenses are still going out. And I stopped. I turned off the marketing again, and all of a sudden you're thinking, well, why? It's like a vicious circle. It goes
hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Because when you look back, you go, how could I turn off the marketing when I was running out of money? When that's the time I should have been hitting the accelerator.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's almost embarrassing to admit it, but I think, God, I've been so stupid over the years, and it's just realizing that no, you just got to do these things. You got to understand your business. In order for it to grow and make the most effort and most benefit from my time. Yeah.
And I think the other thing you touched on is this notion of now you have to find more investigators because you've got more work than you can handle yourself. And I think that's another trap, is where people say, well, I'll turn the marketing off because I'm too busy. So I'm either too quiet or I'm too busy, and therefore I'll turn the marketing off. And it's like, hang on a second, it needs momentum. And this notion of scaling up and having other people. So tell me a bit about that shift.
Yeah, I look at, again, the more you get better at certain aspects of business, it sometimes creates other problems, which you've got to shift your focus on. And I suppose we're at the stage now where the marketing's working, we understand our numbers, and we get to a point now where we actually been turning work down because I didn't have enough qualified agents to take on the work. Yeah. Of course, then I have to go out and do the work as well. So I'm really trying to sort of take a step back from that and really focus on the different roles in the business and not be a technician.
Yes.
So it's now sort of generated a shift in our sort of priorities, whereby we're now marketing for our training to identify new agents and to train them up.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned before, I'm quite proud of this little sort of this business plan where I'm able to sort of charge investigators to come and do my training. When really the other reason for that is because it's my recruitment strategy.
Yes.
Because those agents who show a potential, show a willing to learn and take up what I'm training and teaching, they're the guys I want, and girls, they're the ones I want to work for me, because they understand where I'm coming from, they understand my point of difference.
Yeah.
And we're already halfway there. They want to be professional. They want to be the best.
Yeah, fantastic.
And they're the guys that want to work for me. So that's where my shift is at the moment, really sort of trying to market and get in front of those new, fresh agents who really want to sort of perform and learn the trade craft and work for us.
Brilliant. Because you touched on another thing, which is my job as a business owner is to solve problems. And when I solve one problem, it creates another problem. And as long as I'm solving those problems, my business will grow.
Yeah.
And we're really shifting into a world of, okay, the income that Richard makes now is out of profit, not out of effort. And that sort of creates that level of almost passivity, where even if you don't do any investigating this week, you'll still be able to put food on the table and generate an income.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect of that was that, the work we're doing, we're there to help people.
Yep.
And it's also about mind shift. So being in a position to help more people by leveraging off the skills and the reputation we're building.
Yeah. And I suppose it's an interesting field to me, because I was reading some of your posts on Facebook about how to know if your partner's cheating on you. And it's like, first of all, you can't access their phone. They change the PIN number. And I thought, it is fascinating, because some people don't know. They don't want to know. But in other situations, they need to know. And that's probably where the value of PI kicks in, is when you've got some sort of thought process that something's not going as it should be, and you can now get someone to prove it for you.
Yeah. And I think that's the other mind shift I've had from a point of view of marketing to people, trying to understand what they're looking for. My thought of marketing was just saying how good I was, technical I was. And that's not what people are looking for. So it's about changing and working out what are people looking for, and really getting into the motion of, what's their pain points, what can I fix for them? What are the problems they need solved? And then talking to them in a language with the emotional feelings of where they're coming from, and giving them a solution.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it's the same whether it's an infidelity matter, like I'm doing a bit of marketing on at the moment, about helping victims, because a lot of the people are being exposed to some really traumatic and emotional trauma through the relationships. So it's about trying to help them regain that power. And it works across everything from business to infidelity. We do so much work with businesses where their staff are being deceitful and lying to them and costing them a lot of money. And it's just about being able to give them that evidence to give them the answers to make informed decisions.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And you touched on a really important point there with marketing. And I've heard it described as entering the conversation that's already taking place in your prospect's mind. And for most people, that's an art. You really have to stop and think and assess and test your message. And I think when you can invest the time to do that, your marketing will grow strong. And when that works, then you'll have more demand on your service, and that will help then grow the other side of the business. So it sounds like it's all coming together nicely.
Yeah, look, it is. It's I think you get that penny drop moment, but it's about working on yourself, and we've done a lot of work in sort of understanding what I do and why people need our services. And I think the research we did in the emotional words and the pain points, and fixing the mistakes I was making. Saying I'm a great investigator, I've got all this experience. People don't care. They want to know, do they understand the emotion they're going through? Can they give us the solution to the problem? And can they do it with the support and compassion that people need when they're being a victim?
Yeah, fantastic. So let me just leave with one last question. Best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Know your numbers. 100% know your numbers. Look, best bit of business advice I'd probably received, to be honest, is I've got no business in being in business. I should have listened to that years ago and just been happily gone away on just working for somebody else now. But I had a vision. I've always wanted to work for myself, and I think the key for me over this last 6 to 12 months has been understanding my business and actually taking the time to know the figures and know what we do. How can you build on your success unless you know what is successful or not?
Yeah, and this is strategizing. So often people in business, they're too busy to stop and think. And they say, I'm too busy to do this. And I'm going, well, sometimes you're busy doing the wrong things, right? And if you don't slow down, you can't sit there, you can't take a step back and really analyze what levers need pulling and what buttons need pushing. So it is an art form to build a business. It takes time and strategy and creativity. And I think often people don't think of that when they go in. They sort of think of it as, I'm self-employed, I have a job to do, I go and find work and I do the work. But a true business, in my mind, is when the business runs without you. So you create the environment and you put the people in place so that the actual business takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. Look, I mean, certainly still a fair way away from that for the business running without me. And I think the other sort of area which I really saw change my mindset again is that, what I want to do with this business in 5-10 years time.
Yeah.
It is so, what does it look like when it's finished? I think I'm quoting you a couple of times in this, and that really sort of struck home with me, because I went into business because I needed to earn some money and I wanted to work for myself. I never even thought about the future, what it's going to look like. Yeah. And what is it going to look like when it's finished? So now I know what it looks like. So now I can plan to set my sort of goals along the way to get there.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is you get to choose your own adventure. So there's no right answer to what it looks like when it's finished. That's where you get to be creative and say, well, I like what I do. I want to stay in the driver's seat. Well, that's okay. But make sure there's enough cash in there to build your retirement. Or if you want to build it so that you can help more people, that's a different story again. Yeah. So that is an interesting question. And most people are stumped by it when I ask it, what does your business look like when it's finished? They go, what do you mean finished? I just started. I go, yeah, I get that. But go to a builder and say, I want you to start building my house. And then he goes, so how many stories? And you go, I don't know. And just start. And then he'd think you're mad. So it's a great distinction that you picked up there. So awesome. So Richard, look, thanks so much for your time today. This is really just an introduction, so people get to know who you are, what you do, and I suppose if they need some PI help or some advice in that area, they can always reach out to you from here. So appreciate your time.
No, thank you for the opportunity, David.
Pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers, thank you.